the fuller scope, right? So like, what does this mean in terms of our impact on our community? What are the things in our supply chain that we haven't necessarily thought of? Like, what is the diversity of that supply chain? Or, are there policies that, haven't come up yet? But we really ought to have. So that's kind of the first thing is like where companies are like, I want to get to the next level in my business of building it out. And I want to do that in, the most like sustainable values aligned way.
This is Evolve CPG, a community of purpose-driven brand leaders who not only believe in better, but actively pursue it. That's better products, better brands, and better leadership for a better world. I'm your host, Gage Mitchell, founder and creative director of Modern Species, a sustainable brand design agency helping better brands grow and scale their impact. On today's episode, we're speaking with Veena Harbaugh, Director of Marketing Communications at B Lab U.S. and Canada, about purpose-driven entrepreneurship and the growing B Corporation movement.
Thanks, Gage. I'm so happy to be with you, speaking with you today, and I'm on your podcast. My name is Veena Harbaugh, pronoun she, her. My kind of day-to-day role is I'm marketing director for B Lab U.S. and Canada, but it's kind of some other roles in my life. I'm a wife, a friend, a dog mom, and yeah, just passionate about so many of the same things that you and your listeners are. So happy to dive in today from, the B Corp movement, what it means to build a better business, my journey and kind of some learnings along the way, or, whatever you think folks will be most interested in.
Perfect. I'm excited to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us. I'm particularly excited because obviously Modern Species, my agency, is a B Corp, and I've been following the B Corp movement since long before we become a B Corp, and a lot of our clients are B Corp, so it's fun to be able to chat with you and get a little bit more inside information for myself, but also for our listeners. Before we go there, though, I was intrigued when doing a little research on you to see that you had a bachelor's degree in geography.
Yeah.
I think you might be the first guest or maybe even the first person I've talked to with a degree in geography. So I'm curious to know what the motivation behind that was and kind of what some of the key takeaways from that degree was.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting because I view it as like really related to what we do because, geography is, the study of people and economies and society. And so, in, the work that I do day to day, building an inclusive global economy, that to me, that is what it is. And I think, geography does a good job of looking a little bit into the history, right? So like colonization and the systems. But how I ended up there is a little bit of a winding story. So I'll simplify, but I was my freshman year, I took a class called with Lee Walker called Community in Place. And it was about all of the systems of life of education, transportation, healthcare, business, and how they interact in a place-based way to kind of create, a community and also like the quality of life that people experience. And he was like an incredible business innovator. He had been the president of Dell and just someone who I really, admired, for his just like true business brain, like at that point. But then also like really like how he was living his life. He was spending his time with 20 random freshman students at the University of Texas and, just engaging with us in a way that was like really wanted to know who we are, what we care about, and just support us in whatever we wanted to do. But that's there's nothing special about that. That's how he interacted with every person. And so, he set up like coffee dates with us. And I said, hey, like I'm in the business school, tell me about that. Tell me about and he was like, oh, don't study business.
Oh.
And like, just like very direct. And he was never like a super direct person, but on this, he was incredibly direct. He was like, business is easy. You need a trade, and his trade was, physics. And that just really influenced me because it's like, okay, like, yes, we can build businesses and stuff, but more important, we need to be like deep engaged learners with, skill sets that we're bringing to it. And just kind of that throughout, he made business seem something that was non-intimidating. Like one of the assignments in our class was to write a business plan, and he just gave us like a 1-day lecture on doing a P&L and writing a business plan. And I still remember my business plan, and kind of have it, have his, like kind comments on it.
Yeah, that's cool.
And kind of because it comes later around where I like kind of use that as my template for just breaking down some of that intimidation of being a business person. But more importantly, he really like helped me set a vision for my life overall of, yes, I could be, a business person or a community leader, but also be kind of engaged in a much deeper way of supporting people and really just helping solve, the breakdowns that people are experiencing on a day-to-day basis.
That's really cool. I was curious how that ended up tying into business too, since obviously
Mhm.
you've dove deeper into that spectrum. But that makes a lot of sense. You went in thinking business, but were encouraged to get some education that would make your business more purposeful or more insightful, or give you a clearer focus. That's cool.
And at that point, I actually thought I would study urban planning. Like I just was like obsessed with like these systems things, right? So
Yeah.
I'm one kind of glad I didn't pursue that path because business, I love, I really do love business so much. I love like just that you have creative power within it, right? Like you are making, and I love like the make or break stakes of it. That it's it's on you to figure it out, and work and build a solution. So yeah, I'm kind of glad I didn't take that path, but yeah, and there's like several more kind of like steps in between. So happy to go into it as much as you like.
Yeah. Well, one of the other steps I saw was that you had a couple startups that you
Yeah,
were behind, Eco Cabs and Park Hawks.
yeah,
So I'd love to hear a little bit more about the origin story behind those.
totally. So what happened in between, I think, is interesting. So I, did my freshman year at the University of Texas, was in that class, was just loving it, so engaged. And then my family's originally from Iowa, so my dad was in Texas, but my mom, my sister, and my brother were all actually at that time studying at the University of Iowa, all different things. My mom going back to get a degree in social work, my sister getting a degree in public health, and my brother getting a degree in physics. And we've like been like really like involved in local politics since we were little. Like in Iowa, it's just a really like natural thing. Like you can meet all of the presidential candidates. You can. It's just
Good point.
it's like just an ethic that you can. Everyone is deeply engaged. Especially my family. And so they hooked me up with just like helped me find a summer job going door to door, registering people to vote. And so that summer job, I mean, was super fun and kind of worth the note here because it's also where I met my husband, just kind of like the first day. uh,
Ah,
took note of him, and then like we got to know each other, kind of driving to small towns in Iowa and talking to folks, and but just kind of thought it was a summer thing, and then I would go back to school in Texas. And then one day at the end of the summer, it was raining, so we were having to make phone calls instead of going door to door. And the kind of Obama staff had started restaffing up. They had such success in Iowa in the Iowa caucuses, and really saw a win for the '08 general as part of their strategy, since Iowa is such a purple. At that point, it was such a purple state. And so I
hmm.
heard we were sharing kind of the office with one of the organizers, and he was just like on the like complaining, kind of throwing like one of those like grown up temper tantrum sort of things. And I was just like, dude, like you have this incredible, so many people want to be doing what you're doing right now. And um, then I didn't know or noticed, but a guy sitting next to him just handed me a card and said, we're hiring in Cedar Rapids, which, and then kind of called my program, took a leave, and then yeah, I got to go back to actually my kind of hometown of Cedar Rapids, and then more specifically organize Marion, Iowa, which that
Mm.
was the kind of just an experience that changed my world so deeply around like what it means to make positive change. I think just really understanding like the power of what a positive vision can unlock and all
Yeah.
the people that are going to step up and help you along the way. In my like field organizing area, one of my most kind of passionate volunteers was a foster parent of 12 kids, and he gave me his Saturdays. Like it's
Wow,
just
yeah,
experiences like that like I think really just like energized and emboldened me around like what change is possible.
that's
And
cool.
then yeah, that kind of is what after that I had a couple months before I still the plan was to go back to school in Texas, but had a couple months, went backpacking in Europe. And then while I was there, I just forgot to register for my classes. And then kind of the idea came up to I was working on like my appeal of like how do I go back to school to transfer to Iowa. And that's an important part in the startup story, because then that put me in the same physical place as my brother, who's been a real huge just like influence and role model in my life. And so then when I decided to transfer to Iowa and moved there, I talked to my brother and I was like, hey, Vic, I've got an idea. And I was like, Iowa City, like, college town, 20,000 students, big, like kind of going out, party school culture a little bit, and also a beautiful walking pedestrian mall. I was like, this city needs bike taxi companies. Like, why doesn't it have that? This
Mm,
is the perfect place for it. I had really fallen in love with the biking culture in Austin.
yeah.
And then, yeah, truly went back to my, business plan assignment from Professor Walker and wrote like kind of like category by category, like who's our target market, who's our, like
Yeah.
what's our model, and then like scraped together a few $1,000s to buy like used pedicabs from like New York, and then yeah, just got it going with my brother, and that was just the kind of like one of the most special things. One, to get to do something with him, and a gift that he's given me my whole life is believing in my ideas and me. And so just doing that together. And then we were really thoughtful about what we were trying to do with it. And even then, we were like, okay, we want to engage people around sustainable transportation because, I had lived, in Iowa, but then also 10 years in Texas where it was, you drive everywhere. And
Yeah.
there's a lot that I didn't, until I moved to Austin, I didn't know I can commute by bike as my lifestyle, right? And so I was like, all these kids in Iowa who are from Iowa, from Chicago, they just don't know yet. They haven't had these fun experiences,
Yeah.
and so we just wanted to be engaging with people of like, hey, like let's make this fun. Let's do it from 9 p.m. to 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. bar close,
Oh, nice. Yeah.
meet the people where they're at. And then we also did a pay what you model, just to be engaging with them around, what does it mean to like have a fair transaction, and what do you value about that, and that yeah, like a business can also be pursued in kind of more unconventional ways. So that's the story behind I see eco cabs and doing that with my brother.
That's awesome. Such a fun story with so many pieces to it, and I can definitely see how much you could learn from all those experiences, right? The power of not just an idea, but executing that idea, the power of like a vision and getting people excited about that vision and recruiting a bunch of people to work together towards something big. I think those have been some of my favorite experiences in life, as well as that collaborate towards a common vision or a common goal. And it's,
Yeah.
you not only have the firepower of more people, but the energy just builds up and you learn so much from everyone along the way. It's just such an amazing experience.
Totally. And people are willing to help you in ways you never like, a bike shop donated all of the labor to like fix our pedicabs in exchange to be like advertised on our t-shirt, or,
Nice.
we were able to like hire 2 employees, and it was grueling, like it was tough work and not always treated with the most respect, I would say. It was a tough sometimes experience, but it really just kind of gets you in the action of putting your ideas forward and engaging with people and seeing what happens.
Yeah. Were you also driving the bikes, if that's the right word?
Exactly. Yes, we were the fuel, the person power of the bikes, and so we operated Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, and then each of us took 2 nights, and like, yeah, we had 2 other people come work with us, which was really great.
That puts you right next to the people, and you can learn what they really want. You
Yeah.
can do some consumer research right there. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Probably good exercise too.
Yes, very good exercise. We would always take a break halfway through to like eat a piece of pizza and like kind of like encourage each other. So that probably like negated it, but it was a necessary break.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other business, a very different story. But while I was there, I also I worked my part-time job was being an assistant to a serial entrepreneur, and I mean, so many business lessons there from him. His name's Doug Moore, and he's just been like a true kind of mentor hero of mine. And Doug is just like the quintessential deal maker, and just like innovator. Like
Hmm.
the business that I worked on with him was he invented a piece that is used in the making of particle board, and so he would kind of made very like specific and niche, but he would fly his like own like Cessna plane to all of the particle board manufacturers across North America and kind of help them kind of uh,
Hmm.
keep their machine running and all of that. So very like specific business, but that was just one of several. And one of them, another one, which is a very small thing. He lived near the Iowa football stadium, and football is a huge cultural thing in Iowa, and there was a lot that would get kind of really rowdy tailgating near his house, and so he found out who ran that lot, and then the first year I kind of just worked for him setting it up as like a organized thing where we were instead renting to families and had it all like really like beautifully like recycle bins and porta potties and just a really good experience. And then yeah, he second year passed that business on to me, and I mean, in that you learn like just being an entrepreneur how much you need to be deep in the details of getting everything done there, 6 a.m., getting it going. And then also what I really learned from him is just this deep generosity that you can have as a business owner. And, he kind of always viewed himself as just kind of a like, not necessarily with like the ethic of B Corp or better business, but he just always, I think that kind of more like previous like core idea of business of building relationships, showing people respect, meeting the needs of your community and neighborhood. And yeah, just absolutely learned that from him.
Being a good human and a good community member.
Exactly.
Because I think that was, like you said, that was the original purpose of business, right? you,
Yes.
you saw a need and you served that need in a way that supported more than just that need.
Mm-hmm.
You support the community, and then the community supports you, and it's a more sustainable regenerative model.
Exactly.
And it wasn't until we kind of flipped that model and started becoming more and more extractive that we needed to remind ourselves what sustainable business could be like.
I think that's so important that we have to, set the understanding with folks that, the shareholder model or like the, maximize profit imperative, that's what's extreme, right? That this is, our ideas are not, our ideas are, just really, common sense.
Yeah. I say the kind of similar thing about organic food because I've been in that space / an organic consumer for so long. And in the earlier days when people would see me bringing organic food into the office or whatever, they'd be like, oh, that's gross. What is it? Just covered in dirt? Is that what makes it organic? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Organic just means it's grown the way it was grown historically forever since like the beginning of the planet. We just messed it up a few generations ago, and now we're just going back to the way it's supposed to be.
Exactly. And I mean, I guess I could kind of share about that just because of your passion and interest. Then being in Iowa and my time there, I mean, studying geography, but definitely like a lot of the courses were also about environmental science. And I just became so passionate about that it took 10,000 years of tallgrass prairies and bison roaming to give Iowa what our heritage is, 4 feet of like the best loamy soil in the world. And it just really bothered me what was being done with it, that, already. We lost 2 feet of that soil. And that Iowa was, so like importing 90% of its food, and just, things that really didn't make any sense, environmentally, socially. And that was, one of the things that kind of propelled me next on my journey, of wanting to like work on sustainable food systems within sustainable business too.
Yeah, it's a good transition because before your next career steps, you went back to school and got a degree in sustainable business from Presidio, which there was a school here in the Seattle area called Bainbridge Graduate Institute
Yes.
that then, became Presidio eventually. But
Yeah.
so I know a few people that went sort of to that school. I don't know which version you went to, but tell me a little bit more about that experience. And obviously you were already driven to do more sustainable, impactful business models. So what made you decide to go ahead and make it official and get an MBA?
There was sort of so much to learn. And I think, when I engage with, folks, like the difference of where like sustainability was then, whereas compared to now, I engage with, student MBA students or younger, and they have such more sophisticated understanding. And, like just when I was in college, like they first introduced the sustainability certificate. And, it was more around like environmental systems and things like that. Now people that I'm interacting with have, really sophisticated understandings of, not only sustainable business broadly, but also like what lanes, they want to influence it through the investor ecosystem, or they want to, be, like passionate about, increasing consumer power and making sustainable choices. Or so I just still had a lot to learn, and also about business. Like how do you like, just like, I mean, I think it is really how anytime you can give yourself some space to learn. Also, not only about the field, especially with sustainability being like a rapidly advancing field. I feel like I'm due for another MBA again, of just like the changes that have been, that have happened, since then. And then the best part was the peer group. It had just really attracted, incredible, really passionate. Some of the folks I think that you work with, I think we have a few shared connections of people, that, yeah, we're just highly motivated. And so much of it was like team-based work. And so it was a great opportunity to be building, a lot of the skills that I use, kind of day to day of running highly effective teams and guiding those in really thoughtful strategies that are focused on sustainability and impact.
Nice. Was there anything that you felt like that either the knowledge or just having that piece of paper
Yeah.
unlocked for you moving forward in your career?
I mean, yeah, definitely having the piece of paper. I mean, um, it, when I'm going from Iowa to moving to the Bay Area, where Iowa was just this like kind of like truly like open field of opportunity. It's like I told you, I became passionate about, um, you know, food systems, and then immediately I'm on like the Food Systems Coalition and connecting with like
Yeah.
Jason, the food planner, and like it was really like a kind of nurturing and like easy way to like plug in and take action. And then when I came to the Bay Area, where I was like, this is the epicenter of what I'm interested in. I was harder to plug in, and a lot of the, like that first entry point, I think, is, highly specialized. And at that point I wasn't, I want to be a green building specialist, or I want to, study impact. Like I didn't have that kind of crisp lane to like just go straight into that. And so I needed both, kind of an opportunity to figure out within this where do my skills and interests best fit, and then also to kind of help build the community around those opportunities.
Yeah. And I know from there, you eventually ended up working with B Corp, or B Lab, I should say, but there was a few stops in between. So how did that journey work out? Was that an end target that you had in mind, or did it just kind of come to be?
Yeah, the kind of the through line of the other things. So I also worked for the San Francisco Department of the Environment, and then at Salesforce. And both of those roles were really focused on creating sustainable behavior change through like campaigns and communications. And so that, just really connected to what I was passionate about before, and an opportunity. I feel just like, so like I've gotten to like work in some of the places that are on the leading edge at these moments, so it just getting to the city of San Francisco, just, have such deep respect for their bold ambitions. And so, the challenge of getting to start from that place of a city that has bold ambitions and say, hey, there's still really big gaps in how we achieve, um, 0, 50, 100, like 100% renewable energy, 50% waste reduction or zero waste, and then 50% of trips done through sustainable methods. And that meant engaging people. And so I think that's kind of like the core through line of like, how do you engage people, both like consumers and their day-to-day choices that they're making, but then also design, like push the systems to make those choices, easier and more embedded in people's lives.
That's cool. Yeah. So I think I saw like stops at Salesforce and other things too. But eventually, obviously, you ended up at B Corp and have done a few different roles, starting with in growth and then moving into marketing. So how did you enter into growth, and was marketing the ultimate goal, or how did that all work out?
The first role, they were pretty related because the first role was a really cool challenge, which was like, okay, this movement's been around for a while, but to really get it to where we need to like to systematize and help create some structures to scale it. So my specific kind of task was, how do we use digital marketing tools like webinars, automations, things like that to serve especially small and medium enterprises. So kind of built out, like helped redesign our website and do webinars, things like that. And what I love about that is I kind of, going back from my background, I just really have like a heart for that entrepreneur and like how busy they are and how like what a struggle it is on a day-to-day basis to be, doing all of the things that they need to. So the chance to support them in like achieving their vision, and also just like on a tactical basis of like make it a smidge easier of having the right information in their inbox, was that first challenge. And then kind of my next one going from there was a product marketing role where I got to help build out the SDG Action Manager kind of from, and that, I really enjoyed that because it was, a chance to move from, B Corp, this framework that's incredible. And, obviously love to talk about that and answer questions. But also the SDGs where, the world already, and kind of tying back all the way back to the geography background, where, I learned about the Millennium Development Goals and then how, the SDGs were, built out in a different way. And I think that, to get where we're really going of like a truly inclusive global economy, it isn't just going to be the solutions that come from our form of capitalism. It's going to be, they need to be global solutions. So we need to have global goals. And so I love doing that. And then, but I also really love the B Corp community. And so it's not fully shared about often, but I'll give a little bit of history that B Lab, as part of our long-term vision to be truly a global movement, not something that's just, founded and started and led from the US and Canada. In the start of 2020, B Lab U.S. and Canada broke off to be its own global region with equal kind of power and influence as Systema Bay, the global partner in Latin and South America, B Lab Australia and New Zealand, B Lab UK, B Lab Europe. And I think that's, a really great advance, governance matters so much, and to create like a really global movement that really matters. And at that opportunity, I decided I really want to kind of stick with the B Corp community. And that's where I stepped into my current role of leading marketing and communications for this community, which is about 2,000 of the B Corps. That's just, such a dream to get to work and serve amazing companies like yours.
And I appreciate that. So when you say 2,000 B Corps, what's the total number of worldwide B Corps?
We just hit 4,000 a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I love how much the movement is growing, and you've been with B Corp for like 4 years now. Has it been like double since then? I'm not
Yes,
familiar with all the numbers
yes.
over time.
And not only like the growth of numbers, but also all of the like kind of core milestones that like the proof points that we needed to hit of, um, B Corp's IPOing or like multinational certified, like all of these other kind of things to show that this isn't like a niche, small concept, but this is how business can and should be done broadly. Hitting those milestones too has been like, just kind of we have this Slack channel called Awesome B Corp Moments, and it's just kind of a continual celebration of both like milestones of our movement, but then also what B Corp's accomplishment. I mean, that's what's really fun is we like our theory of change isn't just for there to be so many, grow the movement, but it's also for to be influencing business broadly. But and then seeing what B Corps really living into their full power and influence to make change, and seeing things that I never thought possible happen from that is almost like an every few week occurrence.
Yeah, that's cool. And we'll get in a little bit more about the future of B Corp in a second. But before we do, what do you, being on the inside of B Corp, you get to see and talk to a lot of B Corps, I imagine.
Yeah.
So what do you see as the main reason a lot of companies decide to become a B Corp?
Yeah. I think for a lot of them, it is kind of in that like founding like ethos, right? It's like this is the vision that I like. A lot of it, I think, especially for the smaller companies, they start with that as I might not be ready for it now, but my dream of my business is to build it as a B Corp. So we're really lucky in that way that there isn't like it isn't a tough sales pitch on why companies need to do this. And then, yeah, I listened to that interview with Ian Walker, and you all hit on like so many of the like things that we hope for in terms of like why companies want to certify. And I think what he shared was that they had really focused on their product and building their company out and doing that like as sustainably as possible. But then to have a framework to look at like just the fuller scope, right? So like what does this mean in terms of our impact on our community? What are the things in our supply chain that we haven't necessarily thought of? Like what is the diversity of that supply chain? Or are there policies that haven't come up yet but we really ought to have? So that's kind of the first thing is like where companies are like, I want to get to the next level in my business of building it out, and I want to do that in the most like sustainable values aligned way. And then now, I mean, a lot. You all also touched on kind of the talent driver of how people want to work for B Corps, and so that one I think is increasingly like a real driver, not only to like show that you're a company that cares, but then also to have that framework internally to really engage people and say like, okay, great, then help us solve these problems within our company and help us figure out where we can be working with other companies to affect change more broadly.
Nice. Yeah, that's cool. I've worked with a lot of B Corps historically, and it was always on our like master goals checklist of like someday we'll actually go through the whole process and get certified as well. And it I think part of the reason we held off for so long is it's somewhat daunting to tackle the assessment, but also we felt like it was probably unnecessary, but we felt like, oh, we're too small, or we're not quite there yet, or we're not a complex enough business, or whatever. And we felt like we needed to get a little bit bigger to actually make it relevant or something like that. So we waited a while and then finally jumped in and tackled it, and it was a good learning process from not just what it takes to go through that process and fill out all of these answers and get the data and like do all these kind of things to be able to report on what we're doing in many of those areas, but also like areas that we hadn't even considered, like thinking about in terms of what our impact is like in those spaces. With that said, what kind of advice would you give for companies that are thinking about becoming a B Corp, but maybe it's on their someday to-do list? And, are there any tips or tricks you can give them to maybe move that timeline faster?
Yeah, I feel like, and it's I think a really, wise instinct around like timing, right? Of like, you have your business goals. When does it make sense for you? And I think the thing that folks I see like potentially like under considering early on to get them set up for success and be on the right track is their governance model. So how are you incorporating, like, are you adopting benefit corp legislation? Who's on your board? What's the diversity of that board? Like all of that, I think are things that, um, you know, it, if you can take some time and intention will really like, because just the more that you grow your business and add the complexity, it gets harder to kind of change course on that. And so I think that's where when I talk to entrepreneurs that are just getting their business started, it's not sexy stuff, it's like a lot of it is legal and complicated, but there are resources to guide it. I think that is really worth the time and investment. And then I'd say use the tools as they're relevant to you. Like my advice to folks on using the B Impact Assessment is, click through it quickly. Like there's so many questions because it's trying to unearth like all of the positive impacts that you could possibly be having. So if you experience each of those questions as like, do you have a whistleblower policy? Yes or no? And you go, oh, we don't have that yet, and it doesn't feel relevant yet. And you view that as like a negative, it's not going to be like a good learning experience for you necessarily. But if you kind of quickly like click through those and see, oh, these are the kinds of policies that as we grow to hit 20 employees, we should invest in. So I think using it as a tool to see like one, like right now, like where are you at in terms of like a little bit of a reality check, perhaps, just to see like what practices that you have going on, and then also kind of where those gaps are as for you as you build out your business. And then also you really like want to have a crisp understanding of what is the unique impact that your business is having, right? So like any of that kind of core understanding or development of your business model, are there like shifts that you could be doing to that could be having more positive impact in the community? Even as this really small company, if you kind of like the more aligned that you can make positive impact for people and the planet as part of your model, that way your growth goals and your impact goals go hand in hand as you build your company and kind of don't compete or feel at odds with each other. Any of that time or like innovation that you can do early on in that will be so valuable along the way.
Nice. I love that tip. It's because I think if you wait to go through the whole assessment until you're ready to actually certify, you're going to hit lots of roadblocks of, like you said, oh, shoot, we don't have that policy. Okay, we need to pause, go write a policy or something like that and get it instituted. Whereas if you review it ahead of time and build yourself somewhat of a checklist, a to-do list of things that you need to work on over the next 6 months or whatever, then by the time you go to actually finish and submit your assessment, you'll have more of what you need and it won't take as much work to get it across the finish line.
Absolutely.
Nice. That's awesome. So I don't know if we're unique in this or like most B Corps, it took us a little while after certification to even start talking about it, probably like a year before we even put it on our website. And I think 2 or 3 years before we more formally started like putting it on our presentation documents and other things like that. Partly because I guess we were already so deep in the B Corp community through all of our clients and kind of events and different things we attend that it didn't seem all that necessary. I think people already saw us as a mission-driven business, but I think it was also just, as a marketing type business, like working in design branding, like, it's the cobbler's kids don't have shoes situation where we just don't put a lot of time into our own marketing. So maybe we're unique there, but how are you seeing B Corps successfully kind of weave this into their own communication, storytelling, marketing? Or have you found some good case studies?
In so many different ways. I would say kind of the biggest shift from a couple of years ago, where I would say where like, just saying like, we are a B Corp, right? Like that's cool, awesome. But what I'm seeing companies do a better and better job of saying this practice matters to us, or we are, and like we are a B Corp and X, Y, Z. And I think it's really important for companies to be explaining to folks along the way that not just we're a B Corp, we're better, or like this is the standard, but these are the
Yeah.
things within being a B Corp that we're so passionate about. So we are, we're committed to, having positive impact in our community. That's why we're a B Corp. Or we are working on climate justice, and we're working with other B Corps on this type. Like that, I think really explaining why it connects to what individuals care about and how it connects. I mean, just one-on-one marketing, how it connects to your mission is like, I think the very beginning is the starting point for all companies. I say like, okay, what about when you went through the assessment, what were you most proud of? Like, what was the thing that like stuck out to you as this is unique to us? This is something that we are, um, wanting to make sure that anyone that is engaging with like our vision or our company or our products knows about, and tie that to B Corp. Don't just put B Corp as like the kind of entry point, but also, who are you as a B Corp?
Yeah, that's a good tip because I imagine that you or your department have had some influence over this, but there's been a lot of great like joint campaigns that people have been, pushing out, and I get the emails of like, hey, we've created these assets and we're gonna do this thing like next month. I'm usually pretty slow to get to that,
Yeah.
unfortunately, but I see lots of our friends and clients online like participating in a lot of these campaigns, and I think that makes it really helpful because it's one thing to just be like, hey, we're a B Corp, and maybe some people out there are like, well, what is B Corp? I don't even know what that means.
Yes.
So to have something tangible that you can add along with that, like we're a B Corp and here's how we express it, or we believe in this and that's why we became a B Corp.
Exactly.
That's a really tangible, actionable like piece of advice.
And it's like you're contributing like your kind of piece of the story to the overall understanding, right? So I think like understanding of what a B Corp is really clicks in for people once they've interacted with and experienced at least like 3 or 4 B Corp products and services. So the fact that they, first maybe they, buy an Athleta sweatshirt and they notice it in like their like really beautiful branding that they have in the fitting rooms. And then they buy Miyoko's cultured butter, and they notice it on that, and they see like, oh, this is like also like a food thing, like really cool. Like I'm seeing the logo. So like, okay, like this is both like apparel and food. And then you go to Beneficial State Bank and you say like, wait, a bank can be a B Corp too, and then
Yeah.
like within your job you're like, oh, the company that does our performance, like our performance assessment platform, they're a B Corp. Like I think that's like really like each company sharing like their piece of what better business is helps communicate that full understanding. And that's also one of the things that's hard about marketing B Corp is that it isn't a really like specific, tangible, like the fact that it's broad is, like the core offering, because we believe like in the stakeholder model that business needs to be good for customers, community, the environment, your employees, all of those things matter. But that also makes it hard to have kind of that very crisp of, what this is aside from it being a better business.
Yeah, that makes sense because we're also 1% for the planet, but I think that's
Yes.
a much crispier. Like
Yes.
you could just say, oh, these companies donate 1% of their revenue to causes that benefit the planet, and it's boom, you're done, right? But with B
Exactly.
Corp, it's so complex and there's so many different pieces and layers and elements to it that having each B Corp B Corp certified company tell their little puzzle piece that will eventually help paint the whole picture for people.
Absolutely. And I think people also might be surprised to know that like what that we view ourselves as like deep collaborators with other certification bodies, and that like, I want every company to decide, hey, this is how B Corp fits into like our strategy and vision. This is how 1% for the planet fits in. These are how our product specific certifications fit in. And this is like how they all work together to, both have us be on a really clear path of building and improving our business and communicating who we are as a company. I think you need all of those, and I think people would be surprised to know that like we have like really active partnerships, and we love to do joint storytelling with 1% for the planet or fair trade, because we all are on the same broad mission to create an inclusive economy where people are empowered to make the choices that get us there.
Nice. I recently heard someone say a term that I hadn't heard before, but B1, I guess, is like
Yes.
a company that's a B Corp and 1% for the planet. And I'm sure there's other terms of B plus something, but
Yeah.
I'm picturing like the whole trifecta of I forget that was 30 Rock had this joke about like you win these three different awards, and I forget what the
Oh, you
acronym they
got.
use for EGOT, yeah, or four words, yeah. So
Yeah,
I'm picturing like that's the ultimate business like achievement is getting your EGOT of B
exactly.
Corp.
And also, I mean, I've heard, that also can be like confusing for consumers, right? Like they say this is
Yeah.
so many they know. But I, was so happy to hear when you were talking to Ian Walker about like our high hope is that it can be like a shorthand, right? Like if there's something that's hard to communicate on your packaging that have like incredible policies around your supply chain and that's hard to put on, or that you like do these really incredible, you hire people with who've been previously incarcerated, or like with barriers to employment, things that take some deeper storytelling. You mentioned like that, like 1.5 seconds that people have. Like a high ambition for us is for more and more people to be using it as a tool for those quick choices, and we're seeing it. We're seeing the growth and awareness fueled by B Corps using and integrating it in their brands in
Yeah.
sophisticated ways.
That's great. Yeah, and it just takes time. Obviously, like the USDA logo or USDA organic logo is now finally one of the most recognizable logos on package, because it took a long time for people seeing it to kind of understand each little puzzle piece about what that means, because it's also one of those really complex things like what is organic.
Yes.
So obviously B Corp is heading in that direction, which is a good tie into. So what do you see as the future for B Corp? I know that there's big initiatives like the net zero 2030 campaign and obviously the movement is growing and the international community is growing, et cetera. But like, what are you personally seeing as the next like 3, 5, 10 years?
Yeah, well, we have a really specific vision, and it's driven by the organic changes that have happened in the B Corp community, but also a real recognition of what needs to happen. Like, if, and so our real clear understanding is that we're not going to get to building an inclusive economy if all businesses aren't using their maximum power and influence to take action on racial equity, climate justice, and shifting the economy. And so um, already we've seen, B Corps, it's their effort and initiative that started the B Corp Climate Collective, or companies that last summer made statements and took steps towards accelerating their racial equity journey. We know that is the future of the movement. That if businesses aren't taking credible action and working together on what matters most in the world, then really what are we doing here? And so I am really excited because I think some of the thing, what we've been doing, I really deeply believe in. And there's a threshold we still need to cross of getting our movement to really feel like, I think our work relates to every single person, right? Because we're making positive impact on employees, on customers. But does it feel relevant? Do folks know that there's change happening to increase the amount of respect and care and diversity and thought in our environment, and that there's a whole coalition of companies that are working on it as hard as they can? So I think that's what matters most is companies taking action on climate and racial equity. And I'm seeing B Corps really step up and work together. So I think we're building on our previous successes of individual companies, really trying to understand the impact that they have as companies, and then building it out as a network where those companies are really helping foster and support each other and grow. But then we need to be mobilizing the community on what matters, and so I think that is absolutely where we'll be headed over the next 5 years is bold, credible action as a collective.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it fits in I'm forgetting the name of the model, but there's a model that talks about like the old system, and then like innovators kind of shed off from that, and then you need to kind of build a community of practice around that then eventually replaces the old model. And it sounds like we're in that stage where, you know, the innovators, the individual B Corp people, the companies that were getting B Corp certification, where it was more of an individual movement of them taking a stand and improving themselves. But then eventually, you know, they were connecting with other B Corps and starting to do business with each other or help each other out. Then it's like the whole collective movement of like hundreds of B Corps all working together on something. And eventually it's thousands. And, you know, so it's just kind of building that movement so that we can eventually replace the old broken extractive system.
Exactly. And it's really cool because it gets to the core of like the ways of working that don't best serve businesses and people within capitalism, of this like hyper competition, hyper competition leading to mutual destruction instead of like, and that's something that the B Corps, people are so surprised, like pleasantly surprised by how generous and collaborative the community is. And then so I think taking that and then saying, okay, great, but then where has business as a field really messed up and was continually really messing up? And so as a business movement, I think we're not, using our power or taking responsibility if we don't say, hey, what is the economic history that we are a part of? And how do we radically shift that by focusing on racial equity and climate justice?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, I'm excited to be part of the movement and do whatever we can to help. And we're working through our recertification now, so I'm sure we're going to learn even more and improve even more in the near future. So I'm excited and a little bit nervous to dig into that because we're a small company. So it's hard. I can't just like delegate it. I got to jump in and it's all hands. We all got to work on this together, which is also kind of fun.
Yeah. I mean, you're doing so much. If you're doing it like within your individual company, as you just said, as a B Corp, you're helping B Corp clients, you're influencing others through this podcast. So thank you for all that you're doing.
Appreciate that. And thank you for taking some time out. And it was fun getting to know more about your career journey. And I appreciate everything that you're doing with B Lab, but of course, like all the other things you've done throughout your career, from political movements to startups and other things, like just helping push the world and the business community forward. So thanks for doing what you do again. And thanks for taking time out to chat with us today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Gage.
Cheers. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to learn more about Veena or her company, go to bcorporation.net. Subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel for more innovator interviews, expert advice, and leadership discussions. If you like this episode, leave a heart, thumbs up, or review, and share it with your colleagues. As an ever-evolving show, we also love feedback, so send us ideas for who we should talk to next to evolve@modernspecies.com, and learn about our online community and new masterclass on scaling brand impact at evolvecpg.com. See you next week.